All right, welcome back to Unlocking the Cage Heart, presented to you by your host, Ydub, and the one and only JB. The topic today is going to be relationships. This is episode 2. Relationships, a meaningful yet complex topic for most people due to many different reasons. We were last here on episode 1. We were talking about, we're going to introduce love languages, but we're going to switch it up just a little bit today. Instead of talking about love languages, we're going to be talking about toxic relationships and red flags. I hope you enjoy because it's definitely a deep and intimate conversation. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into the first question and get started. All right, welcome back, JB. Welcome back. Welcome back. How you doing today?
I'm doing today.
Yeah. How you doing today? What's on your bird before we get started? Because we're talking about some toxic stuff. So I expected that it become because of the topic. I expected some toxicity to just be floating in the air because this is how I work in the spiritual and natural realm. So yeah, how you doing
I'm an expert in toxic.
today? Okay. We're gonna jump straight into it. For the people listening, I asked him. I said, "How your day going?" He went right into his expertise. So let's jump right into the question. The first question I got to you: when you hear the word toxic in relationships, what comes to mind?
Yeah. But I think of it just like that. The poison sounds, the bones in the skull. Eventually, it's gonna erode everything till nothing's of you left. But people just keep coming back to it because that's what they know. But toxic, toxic comes in many forms. Toxic. Most people don't even realize they're the ones who toxic. And yeah, you may be in a toxic relationship, but you're toxic too. Like being in toxic relationships made me a toxic person, and I think people just got to learn how to navigate those avenues,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm an expert on speaking on it because I've been in it and I've done it and I've grown accustomed to it, but then I've learned how to come out of that
Right.
by
Right.
not indulging in toxic behaviors or patterns that I had or my partner has.
Right. I heard you say within the last response that being in a toxic relationship made you toxic, and so my question to you was, did the relationship excuse me, did the relationship make you toxic? Being in a toxic relationship, or was there already some toxicity inside of you from the jump? And then I said along the lines of, obviously this is more so for the listeners so that they can hear, but also for my edification, being you is just being your big sister.
I think it was quite a bit of both. Like I grew up watching my parents be toxic at times, arguing and fighting in front of us. Like whether one was right or wrong, it didn't matter. Like they carried on the argument in front of us, which most people are taught not to do, but most people do anyways. And like I think I just naturally adopted those patterns in my relationships, even though like those were my relationships. Like, and whether I would try to do it or not, I think when one person feels like they're not being heard, they go harder to be heard rather than. And I think once you start shooting shots back, and the other person doesn't know how to debate it to the point of coming to a solution, like everything naturally turns toxic. Because now you're just fighting the fight with no purpose. There's no aim. There's no end goal. And most of the time, people from since we were young, we're not really taught how to love. We're just taught what we shouldn't let a person do to us. But nobody's telling you like, oh well, make them do this or have them think about this or solve it this way or fix it this way. Most people are taught even toxic patterns doesn't relate. Like I would leave, I would do this, but they never really tell them how to fix it. So I think toxicity is just naturally bred into most people. I think some people, like they just naturally know how to love each other and they know how to do it correct way. But I think most of us grow out of toxicity as we grow older because we realize that the fighting and argument can't continue. Like I can't do this the rest of my life.
So I want to go back to the core question that I asked, and that
Okay.
because you initially said that being in a toxic relationship made you toxic, but then you just gave me a lot of background about some of the stuff that you saw before getting into that relationship. So do you agree that kind of certain elements and certain things that we experience, whether it's with a toxic partner or whatnot, may expose what's already within most of us if we've been through or had a similar background.
Yeah, yeah. I think the people who are predisposed to it are naturally more inclined to do it.
And that's kind of what I want to just convey here, because sometimes we get into relationships and we get to blaming one another, right? And maybe not you. You just saying like I identified it through this relationship, and that's what I believe God wants us to do, to be able to look at other folks, because we are a reflection of one another, right? You take the craziest person and you take the most sane person, right? And God puts those people together, or they cross paths. There's always something that we can learn from one another. And so being in a place and you learning that these, learning toxic behaviors from another person that you're with, it seems a little off. But then sometimes I believe at the right appointed time, right season, God kind of exposes what's really in your heart by the way we respond to the toxic behavior. And then a lot of times when we're responding to that toxic behavior, we're responding based off of what we know, based off of where we've been and what we think we should be doing. And so I think, and it's not going to be today, but I think one of the things Jonathan and I want to touch on is really looking at what toxic is and how to combat it before it ever gets to this place. And some of it, you're not going to be able to just go against toxic behavior, because people got honeymoon phases with you, right? They don't just pop out and say, hey, I'm a toxic person, come date me. That comes out through relationships, right? It comes out through over time. If somebody came and said, hey, I'm toxic, I got this red flag and this red flag, now you get to choose, I think your choice would be, oh, you know what, let me run. Man, that's a good open door. But no, that doesn't happen. So people that we date, and people that date us, or however we want to say it, those things come out over time. So here's my next question, because I don't want to spend too much time here, but it's very good food for thought. In your opinion, can a relationship be toxic without either person realizing it, and how so?
Can it be toxic without either person realizing? Yeah, yeah, it could be very toxic because it's just like you said. Like in the beginning, you don't know this about these people. I'm gonna say it as a friend of mine said it. He's like, you meet people representatives. You meet the best, kindest, nicest, politest, gentlest, or ladylike person that you can find. They bring out all the good parts of them to show you why you should stay, and then later on the monster comes out. But I asked him to meet that person right away. I asked him to meet that person right away because I need to know how you deal with conflict. I need to know how you deal with problems. I need to know how you get angry and why you get angry. I need to know how to navigate these things to know if this is even going to last in the first place. Because if you bring this out later on and we get into this big argument and you leave 2 years down the line because I just knew your representative up until now, what was the point?
Right. And just to add on to that, I would say that um, the question, just to reiterate, can a relationship be toxic without either person realizing? I believe absolutely yes. Jonathan and I, we're saying the same thing, very similar, right? You beat the representation of a person, right? You're in that honeymoon phases, and people, they're not just gonna approach you. Yeah, I'm toxic. Come date me. Come date me. Come date me. But I think what I was trying to get at too is the not realizing it part. We're so caught up in the moment. We're so caught up in the feelings. We're so caught up in this person is such a good person, and all the things that they did initially to sweep you off your feet, that when something toxic enters the relationship, most people overlook it or bypass it. You agree, Jonathan? Or disagree?
Yeah, that's, that's why I tell them. I tell them everything. I tell them how hurt I am. I tell them where my wounds at, where my scars at, things they can open up, and it ain't gonna be so pretty because I'm human. And I was talking about this with my friend yesterday. Like, people don't know how to be there for people in those troubled times. Like, it's a difference from being like, okay, I don't know how to deal with this. Show me how to deal with this. I met a lot of people who told me like, I never really had nobody show me how to be a woman. You got to teach me how to be the woman you need. And in truth, nobody really teach each other how to be men. So at the end of the day, we're two people who really don't know, who's trying to figure it out, but then we're scared to ask for help.
Yeah.
Whereas I think this is a conversation I had with you before. If I called my friend of mine and I was like, hey, I'm like, hey, I'll call a friend of mine. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And he like, hey, I'm happy. But he's like, man, somebody in my family just passed. My natural first reaction is to be like, I'm sorry, my condolences. Like we're trained and programmed for that. But if I call you and I'm like, hey man, I'm hurting right now and I just need somebody to comfort me, people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to ask for that, and the other person doesn't know how to give that because it's so foreign. You know?
Yeah, I agree with you. It is foreign, and that's one of the things we want to touch on is how do you get past that? Because the thinking, you got to people, you got to really you got to realize that the way we think is not the same as other folks, right? We have a way of thinking, and so to reach people, you're gonna have to do something different. Like, and that could be as far as your communication. You could be a person that don't communicate, your person communicate, or vice versa. But you're gonna have to do some thinking. You're gonna have to do some things differently. You're gonna have to get outside of your element. Is what we're saying, right? Being upfront, sometimes I believe that can backfire on you, right? Just being let me put this all out here right now, because even though you tell somebody up front and you get all your things out the way, right? That person is still learning how to deal with life itself, and so they're going to make mistakes along the way. I find nowadays 2025, 2024, the 2020s period, people are so quick to give up on people, right? And then they're so quick to make excuses and justify things for people. Then you might be saying, and you might be saying like, well, what do I do if I'm too quick to give up, and then I'm too quick to make excuse? What do I do?
1 minute remaining.
What do I do?
But I let them know that. I let them know the times where like, hey, it's hard for me to communicate. I don't know how to work on this. I don't, like I need to know what to do. I need to know what you need out of this, what you want out of this. Because of the things I've been through, they make me like that. I'm committed. I'm fully committed to any relationship I'm involved in, and I won't give up. So if you're ready to give up, I'm going to quit right with you.
Okay, can I tell y'all something? 3 things before we go into this next one here. Before we break here. Time, commitment, and patience. God wants us to be able to balance those 3 things no matter what, and we're going to keep coming back to that: time, commitment, and patience. God wants us to have balance in whatever we do. And it's really unbalanced when we come in the first place and we have a lot of things that are unknown to both parties. And what I mean by that is that, in the initial phase, we're being who we want to be. We're at our happiest place. We're on cloud 9. And things within relationships exposes who we are. But I think with that, and I said we're going to continue to come back to this place of time, commitment, and patience, and we'll get more into it later. But the next question that I have for you, Jonathan, is going to be this. What are some common misconceptions people have about toxic relationships?
Well, I got a green, yellow, and red light of that.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And those are all different situations. The green light is about the time I actually learned I was toxic. And that was maybe like 5 years ago, so very recent, right? And I didn't know that whole time that I became that toxic, but I was talking to this woman. And, like, I'm into spicing things up. It was boring. We didn't have nothing to talk about. And I had some things on my mind that I had never got off my chest.
So you decided that today is the day. This is the moment, and we're going to get this out. We're going to lay this out, and let's go for it. Full force.
Kick it off.
We've been boring. We've been monotone. We've been going at a steady pace, and this is the day you're going to poke the bear. Let's go. I'm with you.
Yeah. So this day, I kick it off, and I didn't get the response that I usually get. Now, I didn't get the response I usually get because in this person's culture, they're not taught to do that. They're not taught to argue and fight with men, right? And little did I know, But at the end of the day, the results were all the same because it made me realize how messed up I was that I even tried to approach this person with a conflict that could have been a conversation or a debate about a misconception that was on either side. Like this person just kindly and gently talked to me and we had a conversation and our problem was solved. But it made me turn introspective and look at myself and like, why am I like this? Well, I'm like this because of my past, right? Now, that's the green light because this is when I finally figured it out of how to move forward. The yellow light was this. In my past relationships, I look back at, okay, what made me fight and argue in these relationships? what made me argue and fight was this. Most of my partners, they got off what they needed to get off in that moment, whether we were around people or anything. I don't argue in front of people. I don't argue in front of friends or family. I wait. So they got it all off their chest, and I kept going. I didn't tell them we're going to continue this later or any of that. I'd wait till we get alone, and I've got to bring the subject up because now we can finish this. But they're totally caught off guard because everything's been good up until this point to where we got alone. But what I actually did in all actuality, even though I don't think couples should argue or fight in front of people, I think it should be in private, was now I disturbed their place of peace because they were at peace. And they never knew this was going to continue. And now they're caught off guard and they're like, oh, this is malicious. Like, he got me alone just to hurt me. He got me alone, secluded me to victimize. No, I got you alone so I could finally vent how I wanted to vent without anybody looking at you and you being embarrassed. You know?
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a misconception, you know, like, because on both of our sides, I didn't like what she was doing by publicizing our problems, and she didn't like what I was doing by disturbing our isolation and our peace with each other when we were just happy just a second ago. You know, so that's a misconception, you know, like, but that is toxic on both parts because, like I said, I never told her we're going to continue this later. I never stopped her in that moment, like, I don't want to do this right now because I just didn't engage.
Yeah.
So the red light is this. The red light came to me one moment where I was tired of this one particular person, right? And I'm a person who reads, so I'm reading the dictionary. And as I'm reading the dictionary, I come across the word parasite. And the word parasite is something that takes from all its resources and never gives back, right? Takes from the world and never gives back. That's one of the definitions.
Right.
And when I read this definition, I instantly thought of this person. Like, this person takes and takes and takes and gives nothing in return. I thought of the COVID virus, how something mutates to make, I'm like, why doesn't it get killed off? Well, it's like the COVID, you know, like, it keeps mutating so the world doesn't kill it off and become immune to it. You know, and I was like, I'm going to tell this person this is exactly who they are. But this is thought out toxicity. This is a point where we shouldn't even be talking to each other. Yet, I'm plotting on how to hurt them the next time they try to hurt me. You know, like, and this is a red light. If you at this point with anybody, y'all shouldn't even talk. You shouldn't want further interactions with them, any relations with them, because now your intentions is to hurt them as much as you can. And then be happy the highs and lows are too good for y'all. Like, y'all feeding off of negative behavior.
Yeah. I like, you know what I like about what you just did? You broke this down into red light, green light, yellow light, right? And it sounds like your red lights was pretty much like, hey, you shouldn't be here. This is just the wrong relationship with you. I mean, we done passed where this thing that's going on in this relationship has grew to a place of really no return when you start getting to the red flags. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, because that person, they would just say things in a moment to hurt you. Like, they would get mad and they'd say something in a moment to hurt, but I'm not that person.
Yeah.
I don't just get mad and be like, oh, I hate you or this and that. You know, like, I actually think about what I say, and they say that's even worse because they're like, well, you actually thought about it. Yeah, because I'm a thinker. But my thinking stops me from hurting you when I could fix a problem. But when I feel like you're trying to hurt me, I have this well thought out plan of how to crush you. But that's when I realized, like, this is too toxic, and this when I can accept it, like, I'm toxic too.
And now you done responded, and now you done reached that level of red flag. Right? I mean, am I hearing that right? Like, somebody bring out, basically, you know, they say a person can bring out the best of a person or a person can bring out the worst. There's only so many times you're going to hit me before I hit back, right? Like, that's, at least that's in most relationships. That's how people look at it and people view it. I want to talk a little bit, right? I want to stay on the red, yellow, and green just because I think it'd be clear if you could just think of one line that describes the red, one line describes the yellow, and one line that describes the green. I'm going to give a definition of a toxic relationship first while you think of those things, but I think this would be good for our viewers. A toxic relationship is a harmful relationship, and this is just definition, right? It's typically characterized by behaviors that negatively impact a person's mental, emotional, and sometimes physical well-being. And we had talked a lot about, or what I was asking Jonathan is, you know, the misconceptions around it, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But while he's going to provide us with those one-line definitions of red, yellow, and green flags. But the behaviors can include a lot of things like manipulation, control, lack of support, and dishonesty, which really all of these things, if we were listening to them holistically, breaks down an individual person. And can you imagine being manipulated over and over and over again, control, almost to a place where this becomes a narcissist behavior and you don't even know it because you're just stuck in this cycle. The control and lack of support, not supporting you, but supporting what they want out of that conversation or what they want out of that relationship, and ultimately leading down the path of dishonesty. Because if I break a person down so much to the point of no return, then this person shuts down, and I start to see that and from one side, one point of view, it causes a person to think that this person is not interested in a relationship, and then you veer off into other things that become toxic in a relationship, like cheating, talking to other people, and all this other stuff. So just want to give you a sense of where these things lead. Before I get into the misconceptions that I thought of while Jonathan was talking, Jonathan, give me a definition of green flag.
Green is that. Green is taking a step back and looking at it from outside your perspective. Like, you can never grow if you don't look at things from other people's perspective. Like, that's what that opportunity afforded me a thing to do. It made me look at her. It made me look at me. It made me look at my past. So that is a green light when you're able to view all sides and move along clearly.
Yep. So this is basically saying we're progressing. Things are coming up, maybe coming up from your past. Things are being triggered, but we are actually handling this situation the way we're supposed to. We're talking through it. We're coming to an understanding. We're coming to maybe not agreeing, right? But sometimes we disagree, but we're coming to a place where we can have a nice casual conversation without including others and whatnot. And then yellow flag, Jonathan.
Yellow light is exactly what it made me do. It made me slow down and analyze how I am, who I am, the past things that affected me, what may be affecting them in the moment, and how to actually analyze in that moment. That's why it's a yellow light. Slow down, stop thinking so fast, and analyze in this moment what's going on. When a person tells you they're not being heard, stop and really start listening instead of talking to them. Stop and hear what they're saying, and then calmly explain your point of view. Understand that don't try to deflect, don't try to protect your character. Analyze what they're saying and conclude that they may be right. They may be right.
You may
be misunderstood.
They may be right.
They may not explain it to you the right way, but they see something.
Yeah.
And this is your part. Don't take it as they're trying to hurt you.
Right. And if I'm hearing you right, like we talked about the green flag, we talked about the yellow flag, right? And I want to just talk about the difference between them for a second here to make sure that there's a clear guidance, clear understanding. We're saying that green flag, you're actually taking the time to consider what's going on in the situation and you're moving appropriately. Yellow flag, we're saying, okay, it's time to slow down. So we done elevated from the green to the yellow, right? We done elevated just a little bit, right? And so things ain't going so right. They're not going the way we think it should be going. So it's maybe a place for both parties to pause. If not both parties, because sometimes you can't get both people on the same wavelength, you pause, slow down, and analyze the situation so that you can think clearly about the perception and what's being perceived from both parties. And like he said, I think this is a good place for you to yield. Good word, right? Stop and listen. And then the red flag. What is this one? For me, if before Jonathan say anything, it would be run. I just don't like the word. The term red for me is associated with a lot of different things, but I would just say run. We didn't try to end. Okay, go ahead, Jonathan, before I jump into this thing, because I've been with some toxic people, and you can see it's going to start to come out of nowhere.
When this mother sucker breathes and it irritates you.
Everything you say,
leave when you can't stand the way they breathe. You can't stand the way they drink water. You can't just stand them sitting there not doing nothing. And don't move on. And else out. And don't like them. Figure something else out.
I want to go step forward with this red, right? Because this is when the relationship becomes so damaging, right? So I want you guys to understand what Jonathan is saying. He's not saying give up on a relationship, right? But he's saying that when it becomes so damaging, right? So damaging of no hope of return, right? This is where the person may be physically abusing you, the person may be emotionally abusing you. You done tried these steps, you done tried to analyze, you done tried to come to an understanding, you tried to come to an agreement, but every day you wake up, you just everything the way the person walk across the floor.
But let me say this in a mode of being real. Let me say this.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Kind of an expert in these things. When most of the time people sacrifice for a relationship so much that they realize that they love this person. Like we've been through so much together, but once they try to change and you still just see nothing but the bad, and the bad keeps coming up because of the past harms that happened to you, like maybe this isn't for you anymore because you've been damaged so much that you can't accept the fact that they're even trying to change and you can't accept their love. So maybe this is a time where you walk away from this because this person can't even change and fix it now. You know, like, so there's no point in continuing with somebody who you love, but inside of you, you dislike them.
All right. So, man, we you know, as we pick this back up here, I wanted to just, before we move on to the last question that we're going to talk about with this episode, I want to talk about those misconceptions that people have about toxic relationship. And I think I started off a little bit by saying that the belief that physical violence is the only form of abuse, and that's not it. Some people believe that it's easy to leave those relationships, and that's not it. After you've been through green, yellow, and now you're getting to bling, 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 red flags, sometimes it's harder to leave when you've allowed things to fester, to grow, than it would have been in the beginning. But I'm not saying leave in the beginning when you see them, because some people say this. Some people say, as soon as you see a red flag, go, run. So I'm not saying that by far, because I think that we all come into relationships with something, right? And there's a place for us to work some things out. And there's a place for us to not be in the same place. Sometimes people need healing. People need to forgive themselves and forgive others before getting into a relationship. And sometimes you may have just gotten into a relationship too fast. And that's possible. I remember this one time where I told the person, I cannot be with you. I told him I can't be with you because God wants you. That was the hardest thing for me to do because I wanted to be with him. And I can't be with you because God wants you first. Now, what I was saying in a lot of words is that God wants to heal you so that you don't hurt me. God wants to love you and show you what love is so that you know how to love, and that love is unconditional, so that when you get with whoever, that you are actually giving out love instead of the hurt that you have. But the only thing he heard was, you don't want to be with me. Now, whether we ended up in a relationship down the road or not, it wasn't the right season. Sometimes you have to allow yourself to heal so that you don't end up hurting other people and yourself. Jonathan, I know you got some philosophical thing to say.
No, I would have been just like him. I didn't hear God say nothing.
But you know what's crazy? I think that was true love that I had for him. That was the love that I had for him.
That's a pure love.
That was, it was so hard for me to do that. And anybody know me know that I love being in a monogamous relationship with one person. And I thought this was what it was. And I wanted to follow, and I could have followed my heart or I could follow my feet. And I wanted that man to be the best for whoever God had for him. I thought it was me. But it turns out God had different plans, and that's okay. But planting the seed that it's not you, but God got something better for you. Here's another
But hold on, that's key information, because that takes communication to get to that level, right? Because you have different type of people. Yeah. I'm this person who I'm going to try to work through all your problems and troubles with you to fix everything you've been through so we can be together, right? Like, I believe we're each other everything.
But what if that's not the message you got? Like I get what you're saying, right? Yeah. You're going to work with that person, and ideally, I would have wanted to go through it with him, but then I think there's people that God has meant for you to go through some stuff with. And then there's some things and some people that have been so broken that God is saying, let me first. And I say this because of this. Some of the things that God was showing me before I made that decision was so much happened to him as a kid. And when I was able to bring up to him everything God has showed me, he broke down crying. And it was just for this particular, so I want y'all to know that this is not a one fit all. Like Jonathan is saying that he's going to go through it with you. I'm saying that in this particular incident, I was told God wants him first. Jonathan.
No, there's nothing more to be said. That's just both sides.
Yeah, I just, and I thought, like you said, Jonathan, that, I mean, it kind of sums it up. That was pure love, man. I mean, even the next, even just one more example of someone who was very, very prideful. And I didn't see it at first in the relationship. I didn't see it at first in the relationship with him, how prideful he was. But then when we were together and it was time for us to end, because I started to see red flags, right? Started to get to that place of red flags. And I done tried to slow down. I done tried to analyze. I tried to pray. But what God ended up showing me in that relationship was, you got some prideful things and ways about you that you need to fix within yourself. And this is not the place you should be trying to fix it with him. And so going to him, communicating on that level, like, God has so much better. It may not be now, but God got something in store. But for right now, for both of us, to not lose the friendship that we started off with, let's go back to being friends. And that was the hardest thing. I want to say having these conversations was extremely hard, but they were necessary, because if I didn't, I would have kept myself in a cycle of abuse. And now, just being all transparency, the guy that I'm referring to has so many mental health issues on a different level that all I can do is the same thing I was doing back then, is pray for him. And so it's sad. It's sad. It hurts me because some of these things, God is, I think that a lot of people don't consult the Lord, and God cares for us and our relationships and whatever it is that we're going through, and he cares about our healing process. And God will show you in those relationships exactly what you should be doing. We started off talking about time, commitment, and patience. What are you doing that time? Man, get on your knees, because when you're analyzing a situation, you're going to need some wisdom that comes from above, not just the wisdom that you know due to your experiences or your circumstances. You're going to need something else to help you navigate those relationships, to give you the response that you need so that you're learning and growing and everybody's being edified by what you're going through. All right. So we talked a lot about this, and I think it's right. We should have. People think that it's easy to leave a toxic relationship. Jonathan, can you expound on that?
Easy? No, it's the hardest thing you ever do, because you have so many memories with this person. The lows make the highs even better. The highs make the lows even worse. So when you're constantly getting pulled in these directions, one day you don't know if you're going to be together. The next day you know you're going to be together forever. Like, that does something to a person's mind, to experience all these different stratospheres of love, all these different atmospheres of emotions. Like, it isn't easy, and anybody who's really been in one will tell you, like, they're only in that toxic relationship because they love that person. Like, that person most likely had pieces of them that other people would never get, will never have, because they gave it all to this person. So it is a deep bond and connection. Like, I just hope that those same people learn to acknowledge that growth in that person, whether it could work out or not. And I hope they take whatever they learned out of a relationship and do better in the next one, because I think that's what they're for. I think when we're young, we do a lot of things we want to do when we're older. So some people they should be given an amount of grace, but you shouldn't allow anything that you don't want to continue negatively happen to you. You should set your boundaries, set your lines, and be loved the way you want to be loved. But is it easy to walk away from them? No, because when you see them, your heart will still spark. The people I love, I'll always love. I'll never let them go, but that don't mean that I should go chasing them down and be with them. I could love them from a distance. I could love them and never see them again, because I've just learned how to keep going with the lessons they taught me. He put them in my life for a reason. They were a lesson. They taught me things, and I'll never forget them. But that doesn't mean that I shouldn't go give those lessons and that love to somebody else who deserves it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I couldn't have said it better. I'm just gonna add on to what he just said. Is some people don't leave due to fear of violence because they're in a toxic, violent relationship. Some people become financial dependents, and people make you believe that you can't do this by yourself, that you need me, so you're going to continue to come back. Emotional manipulation and the belief that the victim is not worthy of a better relationship. You'll never find nobody better than me. And that's not true. We want to break down some of these things that people believe in a toxic relationship and why they get to that place. And so getting an opportunity to hear both sides, I think is going to be very beneficial to the listeners. People believe that abusers are just angry people. What are your thoughts?
Abusers are just angry people.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, that's the way they learn how to love, right? And it don't make it right at all, But I think they're hurt people. I think they're people who misidentify what it is to love and how to love. And I think it's just some people who just ain't learned any different way to love. I think they're emotionally immature. So they only learn how to do certain things. They can't win an argument. They know they'll win a fight, so they abuse their partner. It's many different things that go into it, but that doesn't make it okay because at the end of the day, if it's physical, nobody wants. You hit a girl in my family, I'm gonna come beat you down. That's how I feel. She ain't a girl, she can't fight you. Nobody wants anything like that for someone they love, especially a woman, right? But mental and verbal and emotional abuse is all the same. I don't think you should be hurting the person you love because some of those scars can't be repaired. They can't be healed. You damaged this person too, and you got to take account of what you're doing to them.
Man, I agree. I would say this to that. Anger plays a role in abuse, but it's not the sole cause of it, right? Abusers often use anger itself as a tool to manipulate and control their problems. I'm gonna hit you if you don't. They're raising their finger and raising their fist and all this other stuff. And out of fear, even when the hand goes up, I remember, I don't know, I feel, I hate to say this, but I felt like my dad had a signature move with his hand. I don't know, he never hit anybody, but he always threw it up as if he was getting ready to backhand, a person. And I used to be like, what is he doing? I remember saying this so much, but not realizing people use that as a method to control. Here's another question for you, as we're starting to wrap up this episode 2. It says, abuse is a result of alcohol and drug use. What are your thoughts about that?
Drug use. Yeah, I think alcohol and drug use, I think they can make your emotions more volatile. Like everybody know like a drunk person is quarrelsome and argumentative and stuff like that. So it may bring up, like they said, liquid courage. They call it liquid courage. It gives people the feeling of doing things they wouldn't normally do, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't always been there, right? But I think it takes it takes a certain type of courage to walk away from a problem rather than fight or argue about it, to just concede and be like, hey, let's figure it out, because what am I mad about if the problem is solvable? If it's not something about just you wanting to cause me harm in general, what am I so mad about that I can't sit here and solve a problem with you? That I have to become emotionally or physically volatile towards you and cause some type of harm to you. If that's the only way you can always win, by hurting the other person, how good are you at figuring out solutions in life? Because you can't beat up everything. You can't harm everything.
Yeah. But some people...
You can't harm your bank account into giving you more money. You have to find a way to go get money.
Yep, absolutely. I'll say this. I got one more question that's coming up here. Let me get it. I got to say this about the misconceptions and toxic relationships, and I'm going to close with this one question that I want you to think about, not answer necessarily, but think about. Control. It's not normal to think. It's not normal for somebody to always know.
You have 1 minute remaining.
I guess I would be asking, is it normal for somebody to need to know where your partner is all the time, right? But controlling behaviors like this, they're signs of an unhealthy relationship and can be formed, and can be a form of abuse, right? Do you want to know where people are at, right? But do you want to know yeah, you probably want to know where people are at, make sure they're okay, right? But is it signs that maybe there's some trust issues or some other stuff going on? It could be some flags, right? But it could not be some flags. It just may be how somebody was brought up or what they grown into. Some people think that once you find the right person, you'll always be happy. And I just want to just kind of leave on this note that while healthy relationships can bring you happy and you may be happy, they're also going to involve their own challenges and disagreements because, again, we have two dysfunctional folks, right, who are coming together and we're learning how to function in a way that brings us both happiness. And at least that's the goal of those relationships. All right, so as we start to wrap up episode 2, relationships, just definitely want to thank you guys for joining us and getting on board with us and just having a genuine conversation and conversation with us. And just understand this, we do welcome your feedback. We welcome your comments. So please do share. We've been talking a lot about toxic relationship, what comes to mind. We talked a lot about, if either person can realize they're in a toxic relationship while they're in one, and some of the misconceptions that people have about toxic relationships. And I want you to understand, like, there are a lot of misconceptions that people have. And sometimes it's easier to judge a book by its cover, but we want to encourage you guys to analyze, to take a step back and put yourself in other people's shoe when you're thinking, and consider them when you're having conversations, because there's more people in toxic relationships than you know. So as we close out, what we're going to be looking for on the next episode 3, we're going to talk about identifying red flags. And one of the first questions that we're going to pop off with is, what are some early signs or red flags people tend to overlook in relationships? So what are some early signs or red flags that people tend to overlook in relationships? And so that's going to be a question that we're going to just hold dear. We're going to kind of meditate on that a little bit, just kind of think through those things and be ready and be prepared to talk about them when we come back. I think as we close out, Jonathan, is there any final words?
Yeah, the final word is, when you're in a relationship, just because you're in a relationship, the work isn't done. Like, that's when the work starts, right? Like, don't think because you're with somebody, like, oh, this is it, they'll accept me how I am, like this forever. Like, it's like I said, red is like yellow, like green. Like, you're in a car, you're driving, you're reaching a destination, you have a goal to be together forever, and you're doing it together. Like, and every moment isn't going to be perfect. Every moment isn't going to be great, but as long as you acknowledge where you're at, you'll finally get to your destination. And I hope you make it to your destination with that partner. But if you can't, and you're at that red light too long, just let him out the car. The light will change.
There you have it. So as we close out episode 2, and we're going to episode 3, I just want you to remember a couple of different things here. Remember time, commitment, and patience. With time, your situation will tell everything that you need to know. But in that time, what are you doing with that time, right? Are you praying? Are you seeking answers? Whatever that may be. And commitment allows for grace. It allows for you, the other person, your partner, it allows for you guys to mess up, but it also allows for you guys to start cleaning up some things, not just from the now, but things that has happened in your past, so that you can get to the core issues. And then the third thing is going to be patient, right? Because patience is what's going to direct your choices on both ends of the spectrum, you and your partners. So we thank you. Look forward to seeing you guys for episode 3.
Shout out to our subscribers too. Thank y'all for listening. We appreciate y'all, man. Comment. Talk to us. We talk back.
All right. Peace, love, and hair grease. Out.